Okay, I just told a story about self-sabotage when I was 17 or 18, and so you can check that one out if you want. But that was it was an interesting enough story that I want to tell another one because this one relates to where I ended up today and with my wife and everything. So another moment in my life where I self-sabotaged was on a cruise ship. So bit of uh, bit of backstory here. I had just met my wife probably 5 months before, and we were first friends, and then dating, and we were the type of couple that we were just so professional. We kept saying like we don't date people at work, so we weren't dating. But then I got this job on a cruise ship, and it was via a guy that I admired as when I was younger. He was another drummer, and so I felt this pressure of doing this gig, like, oh wow, that's a cool gig to work on a play drums on a cruise ship. And it was, all intents and purposes, on the surface, it was a great gig. Um, so part of this backstory is once I got this job on this cruise ship, the pressure sunk in. I had to buy a tuxedo. I had to um, get my drums shipped from Victoria to Miami so that I could buy Air Canada cargo so I could join them there to do this cruise ship circuit, which was on the cruise ship Fantasy by Carnival. And it just kept doing runs in the Bahamas. So Freeport and Nassau back to Miami or Tampa. I can't remember. Doesn't matter. Um, so once I got this gig, all of a sudden I didn't work with Wendy anymore, and so we connected for 2 weeks before I went, and I was smitten, and she was the one, and all that stuff. And so I went away to do this amazing experience that I thought would be amazing, working on this cruise ship. And again, it was a pretty neat life. Within an hour of being on the cruise ship, I had my tuxedo on, my drum set up, and I had sight read a 2-hour show, like their big show. So that was high pressure situation, and I did it really well for someone to just walk in, never practiced, never tried. I walked in and pretty much nailed it. And I only had to work an hour a day. Sometimes there was 2 gigs a night, but really it was like 1 to 2 hours of work a day. I think at the time I was getting paid 500 US cash tax free, and that was back in 1992. So a long time ago. So I'm on this cruise ship gig. My room is being cleaned for me. I had 3 meals a day that was delivered. Like I had a waiter who waited on me 3 meals a day. And that was all the good parts of that trip. The bad parts of working on a cruise ship is I was white. I was part of the entertainment, so I was basically like an officer, and I was treated way above the class of everyone else on the ship that was actually doing the hard work. People from the Philippines and all over were, being served stew and being treated really shitty, really, honestly. And I felt so uncomfortable with that. I often described it as like South Africa at sea. Like it just was, I did not like the vibe on the ship, and it wasn't for me. Also, booze was really, really inexpensive. It was like 5 cents a can for US beer for the staff, and 10 cents a can for the fancy stuff, the Canadian stuff. So you buy a flat of beer every night for $2.40. It's not healthy. So I think I knew that, I felt that, and I also missed my girlfriend Wendy. I was going through bags of quarters every time I pulled into Nassau or Freeport. I would blow through a bag of quarters and talking to Wendy. So here's where I sabotage it, because within like a few weeks, I had already played this show many times. I had that dialed in. I had played for Duke Daniels, who was one of the singers of the Platters. He was just a guest on the ship. And they would bring comedians on and other people, and we would be the backing band for that. So one night they had this sort of strongman and acrobatic woman combo, right? The guy's standing there and he's doing all these moves and he's really strong, and this woman is doing a handstand on top of his hand, right? So she's way up in the air and he's holding her up in the air with one arm, right? Look at how strong he is. So the piece of music for that moment was the Hawaii Five-O theme. So if you're not familiar with that, and I knew that song very well. So it's so that's the drums at the beginning. I know how that goes. I can sight read. I can do all that stuff. What I actually did it started playing Wipeout. Now, if you've ever heard Wipeout, it's like goes on and on and on for, I don't know, 25 seconds before the band kicks in. So imagine, if you will, this drum fill for this guy holding this woman up in the air, that's his cue that once the he lets her down, and I guess they have some sort of coordinated movement to make sure that she comes down safely. Instead, I'm going, and he's just standing there, and he's, like really struggling. And my memory is she was fine and he was fine, but my memory also is the band conductor looking at me with daggers in his eyes and screaming at me like, "Stop! What are you doing?" And in my mind, I'm like, "Oh crap! I'm reading the music wrong." But I know now through all this self-discovery and work I've done all year, that I absolutely did that on purpose, or at least my subconscious was like, I got to get out of here. I don't know. I don't have the balls or the bravery or, the oomph to go to the guy and say, I don't want to do this, or I don't want to come home to my parents as a failure. So my subconscious took care of this event for me. So that poor guy holding that woman up. And sure enough, 3 days later, I was escorted off the ship by a ranger or a marshal. And put a real stamp on it for me at the time, because I was being escorted off the ship because I had failed the mission. And by the way, I went home and music was never the same to me. I was bitter and jaded, and it was a long time to recover from that moment that I did to myself. But even worse, like, there was a guy that was being marshaled to the airport with me. He was a gentleman. He was probably 45 or 50. He had been working on the cruise ship for, I think he said 15 years. He caught a cold and they sent him home. And so he was like, his career was over because he caught a cold. Like, basically just that's how poorly they treated people on that ship was, oh crap, he's going to make others sick, get rid of him. And so this is a guy who was feeding a family. I don't remember his name because at the time it was just too heavy. I was going through my own stuff. But I just look back, and that guy got totally screwed by that crappy cruise line. That was shitty. And I hope he found something else to do after that. But his career got snuffed out by a cold. My career in the cruise ship industry got snuffed out by my own subconscious. Anyway, have a good day.